a big smile, always friendly and above all, a perfect competitor who has engraved himself in the hearts of many fans. These are the words that come to mind when the name Daniel Ricciardo is mentioned. But what do we actually know about his past and his biggest transgressions? Let's watch it together. Beginnings. Ricciardo's father was born in Sicily, but emigrated to Australia at the age of 8. I think Europe at the time was a bit difficult and a bit dark, explained Ricciardo in 2017. It was difficult to get ahead, and I think they just thought Australia was a place of opportunity. However, Ricciardo returned to Europe in order to make his way up the motor racing ladder. He won the British F3 Championship in 2009 and progressed to Formula Renault 3.5 the following year. He finished 2 points behind champion Michael Ailshin following a setback late in the season when his car was flipped over at Silverstone. Ricciardo drove for Red Bull in the postseason rookie test that year and again in 2010. He remained in Formula Renault 3.5 for 2011 but dovetailed it with increasing F1 commitments. This included participating in Friday first practice sessions for Red Bull's sister team Toro Rosso. The road to the F1. Ricciardo was given the chance to make his F1 debut at the British Grand Prix with struggling back-of-the-grid team HRT. He took the place of Narain Karthikeyan in their race lineup. Ricciardo remained at the team for the rest of the season, showing gradual signs of progress and faring well against his more experienced teammates. That earned him a promotion to Toro Rosso's race team for 2012. Ricciardo was quick to deliver on the point-scoring potential of the STR7, coming home 9th in his home race at Melbourne. But 11 races passed before he returned to the points as Toro Rosso found themselves at the tail of a congested midfield. Buoyed by the arrival of James Key to replace technical director Giorgio Ascanelli, Ricciardo became a regular contender for points in the second half of the season. Ricciardo was generally ahead of Vergne in their second season together, particularly in qualifying where he retained a significant advantage. But the car was little more competitive than its predecessor, and the pair rarely rose above the lower reaches of the points. Nonetheless, when Mark Webber announced his retirement from Formula One, Red Bull selected Ricciardo to replace him in 2014. 2014-18. Ricciardo joined the reigning champions just as their grasp on the title was slipping. Next to Mercedes' dominant W05, the RB10 was clearly second best, but it was capable of winning races, in Ricciardo's hands at least. To the surprise of many, it was not the reigning 4-times champion Sebastian Vettel who took Red Bull's 3 wins that year, but the new addition to the team. The season had begun on a slightly sour note as Ricciardo's drive to second place at home in Australia was rewarded only with disqualification for a technical infringement. But in Canada, the 2 Mercedes hit trouble and Ricciardo took advantage, brilliantly passing Sergio Perez's Force India around the outside on his way to his first victory. The second, in Hungary, was more fortuitous, thanks in part to a conveniently timed safety car period. In Belgium, he was again the best-placed driver to take advantage of trouble at Mercedes, this time after Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg tangled with each other. Ricciardo backed up those conspicuous successes with a series of strong points finishes which saw him end the year in 3rd place. And with Vettel moving on to Ferrari, he became Red Bull's de facto team leader. Early in Ricciardo's second season at Red Bull, it became clear there would not be a repeat of his 2014 triumphs. Despite hard work in the off-season to rectify their engine problems, Renault arrived at the first race of the season with persistent drivability problems and poor reliability too. Ricciardo got off the line well in Melbourne's season opener, but was powerless to prevent a string of rivals passing him by. He at least enjoyed the distinction of being one of few drivers to overtake a Mercedes on track during the year, taking advantage of a damp track at the Circuit of the Americas to spring a surprise attack on Hamilton. He also jousted with the silver cars at the Hungaroring but came off worst following contact with both, slipping to 3rd place at the flag. This was one of just 2 trips he made to the podium. The other came in Singapore, where Ricciardo believed his car had the pace to challenge Vettel's race-winning Ferrari had it not been for 2 untimely safety car periods. Victory finally came his way at Sepping, ironically at Hamilton's expense when the Mercedes driver suffered an engine failure. A strong second half of the season saw him finish 3rd in the championship behind the Mercedes drivers, but Verstappen was coming on strong. While Verstappen ended the year strongly, winning 2 of the final 6 rounds, Ricciardo was an ever-present contender for podium finishes. He prevailed in a dramatic race on the streets of Baku to win despite falling as low as 17th at one point in the race. While Verstappen made a somewhat shaky start to his second full year at Red Bull, Ricciardo was in excellent form. He won 2 of the opening 6 races, avenging his lost Monaco victory of 2 years earlier, and looked like a potential title contender. It didn't last, however, and his faith in the team was undermined by a collision with Verstappen in Azerbaijan, which he felt the team did too little to help avoid. Verstappen had already extended his contract to remain at the team, while Ricciardo's future remained in doubt. On August 3rd, race fans revealed Ricciardo had agreed terms to leave Red Bull and join Renault for 2019. Ricciardo's switch to Red Bull didn't pay off. The team, which finished 4th in the 2018 campaign, slipped to 5th behind engine customers McLaren. Meanwhile, Red Bull, having switched to Honda power, again came away from the season with 3 victories. The best of the slim pickings for Ricciardo came at Monza, where he led teammate Nico Hülkenberg home in the team's strongest result of the season, 4th and 5th. Elsewhere, there were frustrations. He was disqualified in qualifying for the Singapore Grand Prix for an MGUK infringement, and both cars were thrown out of the Japanese Grand Prix when their braking system was deemed not to comply with the rules. The COVID-19 pandemic delayed the start of the season and meant Ricciardo had to wait to discover if Renault's latest car would be an improvement. He couldn't wait to decide on his future, however. When Vettel's departure from Ferrari was announced, Ricciardo moved quickly, and though there was no route into the Scuderia for him, he took up the chance to take over from Vettel's replacement Carlos Sainz Jr. at McLaren in 2021. The highlight of Ricciardo's first season at his new team came at Monza, where he made the sprint race podium and then led a Team 1-2 at Monza to deliver McLaren's first win since 2012. But his move to the Woking-based squad was more often associated with struggle. Although Ricciardo had a decent scoring rate, finishing in the top 10 of 13 Grands Prix out of 22, he was comfortably outscored by teammate Lando Norris, and he finished almost twice as many Grands Prix in the top 5. He openly admitted to struggling to adapt to his new car and was determined to enter year 2 and the new regulations with a fresh mind. Going into the second season of a 3-year contract, Ricciardo knew he had to get on top of Norris and the characteristics of McLaren's cars to establish himself properly at the team. But an overhaul of F1's technical regulations sent McLaren down the order and only exacerbated the gap between the team's 2 drivers. Ricciardo finished only 7 Grands Prix in the points, with a single top 5 finish in Singapore, and only contributed 23% of McLaren's points. That cost McLaren 4th in the constructors' standings at the end of the year. By mid-season, the team was already trying to get Ricciardo out of his contract a year early. They succeeded in doing so, and replaced him with Formula 2 champion Oscar Piastri for 2023. Ricciardo and Red Bull team principal Christian Horner began talks over him, returning to the team at the Mexican Grand Prix late in 2022. He was duly hired as the team's test and reserve driver for 2023. His sessions in the team's simulator convinced them he could return to his best. It didn't take long for rumors to begin to circulate that Ricciardo was under consideration for a return to the grid. Red Bull announced he would drive one of their cars for a Pirelli tire test at Silverstone following the British Grand Prix. Initially, they ruled out the idea that they had plans to put Ricciardo in a race seat in the future. However, with Perez lagging far behind Verstappen at Red Bull, and the team also unhappy with the performance of Nyck de Vries at Junior Squad AlphaTauri, the decision was taken to put Ricciardo in a race seat. De Vries was shown the door, and a deal for Ricciardo to take his place for the rest of the season agreed in the space of just a few hours. Ricciardo joined Yuki Tsunoda at the squad from the Hungarian Grand Prix. Daniel Ricciardo is not doing too well at the newly named RBF1 team so far, and there is talk among the motoring community about his possible end, especially after the race in Australia. What do you think about this popular racer? Is this his last season? Or can we do it in the next one?